It was a big win for the Commanders, a heroic Hail Mary at the end to knock off the Chicago Bears. We're reacting to Week 8 in the NFL today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, and we have a special guest host with me today. Of course, I'm usually joined by Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make us your first listen every single day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Well, folks, we had some blowouts. We had some tough losses, including the Bengals missing the chance to get to 500. But we start with the crazy finish as the Washington Commanders improved to 6-2 with their win over the Chicago Bears on a Hail Mary. But as I teased, I have a special guest host today. I am joined by Chris Schubert. Chris, a longtime friend of mine, a former producer and personality on this podcast. He's doing work with Locked On these days, and so I wanted to welcome him to the show with Kyle Krabs out today. He's in Miami. We just taking in the Dolphins this week. Travel arrangements made it difficult for us to sync up our schedules. I went to Chris Schubert to bring him in, took advantage of the opportunity to discuss Week 8 with him. Christopher, welcome.
Joseph J., a happy National Chocolate Day to you here on this edition of the show.
Oh, boy. Is it really National Chocolate Day?
That's what the internet tells me, and the internet's never wrong.
The only thing that's missing is Kyle telling me that I don't pronounce chocolate the right way. So
I found it very funny that on the day that he's not here, that's the day that it is.
Yeah.
So. But Joe, it's always good to talk football with you. Excited to fill in for Kyle. And what I love about the Monday edition of this show is that there's just so much meat on the bone for us to discuss from any of these teams, and you just get to set the tone for the rest of the week. So a lot to get into today.
Yeah, well, I think we do have to start with the Washington Commanders 18-15 win over the Chicago Bears. Of course, everyone will talk about the Hail Mary at the end of the game. Obviously, this game was, to me, the reason it was even close was because Washington couldn't score in the red zone. They're 0-3 in the red zone in a game that you felt like they were in control of. They played better, but they had to rely on a heroic finish there at the end. Jayden Daniels launching one up. Noah Brown winds up coming down with it. And everyone wants to talk about bat it down, bat it down, bat it down. I want to talk about why are we rushing 3 on Hail Marys? As somebody who has fall victim to the Hail Mary, as somebody who just recently had the Aaron Rodgers before halftime Hail Mary completed, I've seen this way too much. What do these quarterbacks need to get a Hail Mary off? They need time and they need space. They need time to let the guys get down the field. They need space to get the throw off. Why are we continuing to rush 3 and not heat up that throw and give the offense exactly what they need to give themselves a chance to introduce the variance? Heat up that throw. Don't make it easy on them.
Joe, I mean, we've got quarterbacks that are super athletic. You can't give them opportunities to do this. Like, this might have worked 15, 20 years ago when it was Ben Roethlisberger back there or statue Peyton Manning back there, and you could just rush 3 because they're not going to move. But you have 2 athletically gifted quarterbacks in just this game in particular that could make these throws if you give them the time and space to be able to operate. And the Bears are going to have to think long and hard. And if they miss the playoffs by 1 game, you're going to look back at a moment like this and say, man, that could have been the difference. My question to you is the red zone difficulties that we saw Washington have today. Do you attribute that more to Jayden Daniels just being hurt and not being in rhythm with his team and sitting out this week in practice, and he's still a rookie and he's still learning, and they were just out of sync this week? Because this offense has been pretty impressive up until this point.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's your highest leverage moments. That's when your timing and your preparation is going to be at its most important. And obviously Jayden missed a bunch of time. I was happy he played, man. This game, Caleb Williams versus Jayden Daniels, like, that wouldn't have been fun if Jayden Daniels didn't play. And meanwhile, Caleb Williams out here 10-24. They're coming out of their bye. They're looking pretty sluggish coming out of the bye. Chicago Bears in an NFC North that's very competitive. Meanwhile, Washington 6-2, and you and I haven't had our regular routine conversations on the National Football League. Where are you like buying? Like, are you in on Washington as like the team here in this division?
How could you not look around the other division? I mean, Sunday Night Football, the Cowboys were able to try to make it close at the end, but they were bad for 3.5 quarters of this football game. And the Giants are going nowhere fast. I think you're going to see that again tonight. And the Eagles, well, they picked up a big win today, and I'm sure we'll get into it here at some point. Like, it's, I don't know, they're 5-2, but they're not an inspiring 5-2 in my mind. Where Washington, I look at their record, I look at who they've beaten, I look at how well they've played, even in a loss to the Ravens, and I say that's a team that's playing above. First-time head coach there in Washington in Dan Quinn, right? Getting back into being a head coach and a rookie quarterback with Cliff Kingsbury as his play caller. Like, it should not look this good this quickly, and it is. And so I think right now I would be buying stock in the Commanders.
Yeah, I like the way the defense it seems to get better week over week. Early on, I was like, this might be a fatal flaw for them. The offense looks fun, but can they play defense? Starting to play a lot better as the season moves along, which is an encouraging sign as they are on top of this division for now. It should be a fun race. Speaking of competitive races, how about the NFC South, where this was a big game between Atlanta and Tampa Bay? Obviously, Tampa losing Mike Evans for a while, and then Chris Godwin for the season. Was very kind of curious to see how they'd come up against Atlanta, who's licking their wounds after losing by 20 to Seattle at home. And this is a big game, man. Like, Atlanta won this game a few weeks ago, and now they win 31-26. And if Tampa Bay is going to win the NFC South, they have to have an outright better record than the Atlanta Falcons. I thought this was one of the biggest wins of the week for Atlanta to secure this one.
Well, it's weird to say that a Week 8 game was unlosable for a team, but the Atlanta Falcons couldn't afford to lose a loss in this game. You come off of a bad loss at home to Seattle. You're playing a Tampa Bay team that's depleted in their strength on offense, which is their wide receiver core. A divisional matchup against a divisional foe, your number one threat for your ability to win this division and host a playoff game. You brought Kirk Cousins here to win these types of games so that you can be relevant in the NFC playoff picture. I mean, Joe, they couldn't lose this football game. It would have just been unacceptable with the way they came out of last week, with the way Tampa was entering this week, with it being a divisional foe. It would have been an extreme disappointment if this team fell to 4-4. I think we would be having a totally different conversation. Instead, they pick up the win. It's not all that impressive, but they win the football game. They take the reins in that division, and hopefully they can continue to get into rhythm and find their footing here the rest of the way.
I'm impressed with Kirk Cousins. I know last week kind of got away from him, but for the most part, man, I think he's been dialed in. 23 of 29, 4 touchdown passes in this game. And for all the conversation that rightfully exists about the Buccaneers and their wide receiver talent, I mean, obviously Baker, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, does have a couple of picks. Baker's got like 21 touchdown passes in 8 games so far this year. What on earth is that? But the problem is this team defense, right? For Tampa, it really comes back to defensively and their rush, their lack of their rush, and just overall just allowing too many yards, allowing too many points. And for, like I said, we're going to talk about receivers, but to me, defensively is kind of what's crippling Tampa Bay right now, in my opinion.
And you would expect better from them considering who their head coach is, and he's one of the better coaches in terms of scheming up a defense. Lack of talent or full of talent, he's one of the better defensive minds in the game, and you feel like he would be able to get more out of this team. Last thing on Atlanta, at least for me, is I look at the target distribution in this game, and this is more what this team needs to look like going forward, right? You have Kyle Pitts heavily involved, Drake London, Bijan Robinson out of the backfield, Darnell Mooney adds another layer. Like, those are the 4 guys that you need to see the ball evenly spread to, because they all can do different things for you. And if all 4 of those guys are involved, that means your offense is really clicking. You're getting the stuff out of the backfield. Kyle Pitts is getting you stuff over the middle. Drake London, Darnell Mooney can catch the ball in space, make plays. Like, it's just nice when everything is working. And Kirk was brought here to make all of these guys better. This was kind of that performance when you look at the stat sheet and you see the way everything was distributed, that this is more in line with what they probably were expecting when they brought Kirk here.
Let's get into one more big win, and it's a pretty surprising win. The Browns division win over the Ravens. The Browns get to 2-6. The Ravens fall to 5-3. So Pittsburgh now on top of the North. Is it too little too late for Cleveland to go on a run here? You feel like defensively they're pretty strong. Obviously, we'll see what's going on with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and the injury there. But, I mean, it's a low bar to clear, but Jameis Winston's a lot better than Deshaun Watson. And I think this game against a tough Baltimore team, a tough Baltimore defense, tells you a lot about just how much better they're going to be at quarterback moving forward. Someone's got to be the 7th seed in the AFC. Should we be dismissing Cleveland, or do you think this team has some life?
I mean, 2-6 is such a big hole to dig out of. Like, it's hard. And I mean, Joe, I can just see the game now where Jameis Winston has the back-breaking interception to lose a game that they absolutely have to have, because they don't have margin for error, right? Deshaun Watson's play dug them into a hole where they can't afford the big Jameis mistake in a divisional matchup with their season on the line. Like, what can they afford? 1, maybe 2 more losses to feel comfortable to be in the mix, right? If you get to 8 losses, like, that's borderline. That's like on the edge, I think, in the AFC, right? You get to 9, and that's only 3 the rest of the way, and you're probably on the outside looking in. So I just worry. Listen, this was a huge improvement from what we saw under Deshaun Watson. I think everybody knew that, right? Everybody saw that was going to be the case. The takeaway that I have here is, if you're Baltimore, you shouldn't really lose this football game, right? Like, this is not one that you're going to feel great about at the end of the year, because you offensively are a powerhouse. You, as a team overall in the AFC, have looked better than the Kansas City Chiefs, who are undefeated, and yet you're sitting here at 5-3, and you feel like you have a sour taste in your mouth because you should be a lot better, but you're kind of making some silly mistakes that have put you into this spot.
Yeah, division games are always a little bit weird, and I think that was the case there. We'll see if Baltimore can get on track. Obviously, they look like such a powerhouse. They get Denver next. Denver and the Bengals, couple of home games in a row for the Baltimore Ravens. All right, coming up on the other side of it, we got plenty to get into. I think a missed opportunity for Cincinnati. We'll get into Chris's Jets and more. Be sure to stick with us. Folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find as many quality professionals as possible that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks, folks. I personally love Prize Picks because they put their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. And plus, I love this. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today on your App Store or Google Play. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back. Chris Schubert, special co-host today on the podcast with Kyle Krabs in South Florida. We got some stuff to get into in this segment. We're going to focus in on some of the biggest losses of the week. And for me, Chris, I go to the Cincinnati Bengals. I've been thinking about this football team a lot. I think a lot of this team, and they got themselves into an 0-3 hole that turned into a 1-4 hole. And they started to climb out. They beat the Giants. They beat the Browns. They got themselves to 3-4. And this was their chance to even it up at 4-4. And they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles in Cincinnati. Philadelphia 37-17 winners in this football game. Obviously, T. Higgins with the late week injury that kept them out of this game. But defensively, it felt like Philly just settled in. The game was, it felt like Bengals were kind of in control early on, but Philly settles in on the defensive side of the football. They make some big plays on offense. And the issue with Cincy, it just continues to be that they really can't run the ball. And defensively, they look like a shell of themselves in previous years. Again, someone's got to be the 6 and 7 seeds in the AFC. But I felt like Cincy was primed to take command of this spot. Maybe they still will, but this is a bit of a setback here on their course to do that.
Yeah, I think maybe and I'll throw myself into this bucket, that there was an overreaction to what the Cincinnati defense was able to do the last 2 weeks when they were able to hold the Giants to 7 and hold the Browns to 14. And you think to yourself, oh, maybe the defense is finding their footing. Maybe they're going to get hot here. And then I think you needed to realize the Giants aren't very good offensively, and the Browns stunk with Deshaun Watson. And this was kind of that back to earth moment for them. And Joe, to kind of tie it back into what we were talking about a little bit earlier with the Browns, the Bengals sit right now in the 9 seed. The Browns are there at the 11 seed. These are the teams ahead of the Bengals in the wild card race right now in the AFC. You have the Dolphins, you have the Colts in front of them at 4-4. The Chargers hold the last spot at 4-3. And then it's the Ravens and Broncos both at 5-3. So if you're a Bengals fan, the thing you have to ask yourself is, do we think we can be 2 games better than those teams the rest of the way? Do you think that your football team is 2 games better than the Broncos, the Ravens, 2 games better than the Chargers? Do you think you can close that gap? Do you fear those teams the rest of the way, that you don't think you're going to be able to get yourself out of that hole? The same conversation can apply to the Browns, right? Do you think you'll be able to make up enough ground over the next couple of weeks? I'm not willing to write off Joe Burrow yet. He's healthy. He's still on this football team. They're going to find themselves offensively, I think, at some point. The question is it going to be too little too late before they find their sync? But that's where they sit right now in the AFC playoff picture. So it's just a question of, can they be better than those teams?
The quote from Joe Burrow coming out of this game: I think 10 wins usually gets you in. We got to win 7 out of 9. That's doable. And you mentioned a lot of these teams that are in the way. They play them. They go to the Chargers. They have Pittsburgh twice to close out the year. They've got a game against Denver. They'll have their chances to do this.
One more against Baltimore, right? In Baltimore.
They do. But it's like, all right, I mean, you haven't really told us that you're going to be a consistent operation. But so same thing with a lot of the teams that are right there in the mix.
You win next week against the Raiders, and then you go at Baltimore. You got to show me there, right? If you want to be back and you want to tell me that you're ready to make some noise in this AFC playoff picture, you beat the Raiders this week, and then you go into Baltimore and you find a way to win that football game, and then I'll take you more seriously.
All right, we got to do it, Chris. The Jets.
Oh boy, jeez.
Well, I mean, they're 2-6, man. They lost.
You guys
going to
talk? Can we talk 2026 draft prospects here on the show? Were we that far ahead yet, or no?
Well, the 2020. Well, wow, 2025 draft is not even of interest to you. You went right to 2026.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough situation. Obviously, they lose to the Patriots, Chris. If you ever felt like there was a time to get a run going, this is 5 losses in a row.
That is correct. It's 5 losses in a row for the New York Jets. Yeah.
Staring at a date with Houston.
On Thursday night, a short week on Halloween. Yeah. It's going to be a real house of horrors there on Thursday for the New York Jets.
Go ahead. I mean, what's the vibe? I mean, what are we doing here?
They're a bad football team. They're a bad football team. They're a poorly run organization. They're bad from the top down. And I don't see the way out, right? They're not going to make the playoffs this year. They're not turning this around at 2-6. So really the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to come back? And if you think the answer is yes, then you are going to ask a 41-year-old quarterback to get you out of the longest professional playoff drought in sports. And if I couldn't buy it at age 40, I don't know how I'm going to do it at age 41 with another coach, more than likely another GM, and a roster that's going to look a lot different. Because, Joe, the concern that I have right now with this team is, does Breece Hall want to be here? And this is not a shot at these guys. I'm just naming them because they're the star players on the team, and I could easily see them being done with the situation. Like, does Breece want to be here long-term? Would Garrett want to be here long-term? Does Sauce want to be here long-term? Or do they see the writing on the walls of, this is over? Like, this window is completely shut. They have absolutely torpedoed their chance to win with this core because they messed up the quarterback the first time, and then the quarterback they brought in the second time, it just hasn't worked. So I just don't know where they go from here, right? They're 2-6. They're not going anywhere this year. They're a bad football team. Joe, they did not turn the ball over once today. They held the Patriots to under 250 yards, and they lost the football game. They were a touchdown favorite on the road in New England, and they lost outright. How am I supposed to buy in? You've lost 5 in a row. Do I go back to the game you beat Tennessee? Your 2 wins are against rookie head coaches. Like, there's nothing to buy into here process-wise that makes me feel good about this.
Yeah. We could. Kyle, I know Kyle's kind of over. He's like, what are we going to sit here and talk about the Jets being bad? Well, the national media keeps telling us that, here it is. You know, Hassan Reddick's back. Devontae Adams.
Mike Greenberg's going to spend 3 segments this morning on Get Up talking about it. Don't you worry.
Well, it's time to start talking about the Jets like they're a bottom feeder in the AFC. I mean, just that's where they are. That's where they are. Let's talk about this one here. Another AFC East big loss here. The Miami Dolphins, Tua's return, had a chance to get to 3-4. They dropped this game against the Arizona Cardinals, and I know that there's two sides to this coin because there's the big loss for the Miami Dolphins, but also a big win here for the Arizona Cardinals. Second half of this game was pure fireworks. With a bunch of scoring drives. I mean, Miami goes up 20-10. Then that safety winds up being a pretty big deal in this football game and a crazy snap. And then you close out this game with Arizona going touchdown, field goal. And you get Miami winds up punting there before to give you that chance to go ahead late. Short week for Arizona coming into Miami. You feel like the momentum was with Miami with Tua back, and they certainly hyped themselves up this week talking about the band's back together and start Tyreek in fantasy. They fall to 2-5 with a home loss to the Cardinals.
Just not one that you are able to get up from really in a lot of ways, right? Because you lose Tua, he goes on IR, you miss him for a couple of weeks, you get him back, and this is supposed to be your emergence. Okay, we haven't fallen completely out of this in the AFC playoff race. We got our quarterback back. We know what this looks like. This isn't an unknown. We know what this looks like when Tua is healthy and on the field in this offense. This should be the moment where we get back on track, had a little bit of a detour, and we figure this out. And they lose this football game. And I'll take the Cardinals approach on this, Joe, because I don't think there's a team, and maybe you'll come up with another one, that's had a back-to-back week winning streak, the way the Cardinals have done this last 2 weeks, that have completely re-energized the fan base. You win a game on Monday night against the Chargers in a way that I didn't think was possible for the way the Arizona Cardinals were constructed in 2024. They won a gritty, tough football game with absolutely zero depth along their defensive line. They have zero ability to stop the run. They have zero ability to get after the quarterback. They do not have the guys up front to play that game against that team, and yet they did it. And Kyler comes up with the big play, the big run to let them win the football game. And then you follow that up by going on the road. And what makes this win so important, Joe, and I'll go to the box score for this: Trey McBride, 9 catches for 124. Marvin Harrison Jr., 6 catches for 111. They got both guys involved. They got both guys going. When they can do that, that is when they're going to be at their best. This is a first-place team in the NFC West. Says a lot more about the other teams in the NFC West right now than it does about the Cardinals. But this is a first-place operation right now, and they seem to be finding their mojo. And these 2 wins, I think, build confidence, shows me that they're playing hard for their coach. And I think this team is ready to continue to make some noise in the NFC playoff race.
NFC West is going to be perhaps the most interesting race to watch the rest of the year. As you do have Arizona on top at 4-4. San Francisco's 4-4. Seattle's 4-4. And then the Rams are
Cardinals are 4-4 with wins already over San Francisco and LA. Like, huge. That's huge. They have 2 in the bag already.
And then the Rams at 3-4. It's just like they play tough. The receivers are back. That team on Thursday night against the Vikings looked a lot different with those guys back. So they're getting healthy. They have a lot of young players on defense that are gaining experience. So it's going to be quite the race there in the NFC West the rest of the way. All right, coming up on the last segment, we got some big blowouts to get into and just some general storylines and thoughts as we tie a ribbon on this Week 8 reaction. Folks, be sure to stick with us. There's nothing like being in the stadium for these big games. You and I had fun. We went with Kyle one time. We went to South Florida. We saw the Dolphins beat the Ravens, man. A come-from-behind win over Lamar Jackson. There's nothing like that. Those are the best memories, man. You get to go to games, get to go to events with friends, family members. If you want to get to some of these stadiums, you got to check out the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate, and they have so many great features. Flash deals. They give you a seat view so you can see exactly what it's going to be like from where you're going to sit in the stadium. When you buy a ticket, they send it straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails to find it. They specialize in last-minute tickets. So many great things over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Chris Schubert, last segment here. And we had some blowouts this week. We talked about some of the biggest wins, the biggest losses, but the Lions, big winners over Tennessee. A lot of special teams production. Kaylee Freeman, big game for him. The Bills go to Seattle, win by 3 touchdowns over the Seahawks. Seahawks have lost 3 straight at Lumen Field. That's not normal. Broncos handily beat the Panthers. The Chargers get a pretty big win over the Saints. Any of those big blowout wins stand out to you in a meaningful way?
Yes. And first of all, look at us talking football and staying right on time schedule. Who would have thought that we could stay on pace with you
Incredible.
and I? But we'll see here if we'll be able to close the show on pace. But we're doing a good job so far. Yeah, I think I want to make it the Lions and the Titans because I want to apologize to Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions because I doubted them. I doubted they could cover the 11.
Okay. For this week, I'm like, where is the doubt, Chris Schubert? We've been talking Lions for years. Okay.
Hashtag our Lions. I mean,
right. I was like, nobody who doesn't
believe. No, Lions money line was a lock, but 11, I was like, 11. Like, I know it's the Titans. I know they're bad, but 11 is 3 scores. Like, that's
double
a lot
wasn't enough, Chris. Double wasn't enough.
Double wasn't enough. Minus 28 would be minus 4 touchdowns, and it wasn't even close. So again, my sincerest apologies to hashtag our Lions for even for a brief moment doubting what they were able to do. So that's the big takeaway. I mean, I don't know, Joe. I guess I would ask you this: like, if you beat the Panthers, does it really count? Like, do you get a win in the stat sheet, right? It does improve your record, but like, it doesn't. I don't think that there's anything I can take away from a game like that changes the way I feel about you as a organization.
Well, being 5-3 in the AFC right now is a pretty good spot to be for the Denver Broncos.
Good, yes.
Did you see the Sean Payton quotes saying he's like, let's call it what it is. That's a bad offense. We expected this. I mean, I mean, Sean Payton's never at a loss for words, but man,
hasn't learned from his Nathaniel Hackett days. Clearly,
boy, that was crazy. Saints they're undermanned. They don't have enough depth, and Chargers get to 4-3. Bills win their 3rd straight. I mean, obviously a lot of momentum for the Bills in this AFC East, which the Bills at 6-2, the number 2 team in this division is the Dolphins at 2-5. The Bills host the Dolphins next week.
You're good. I don't think you have to win another game. I think you're fine. I think 6 wins will get you in.
Maybe a couple more. Okay. So one thing that we like to go ahead. Sorry.
I want to talk about Seattle for a second because
sure.
You have the big win the week before, right? You beat Atlanta and you go in there and you pick up a road win. And I start to think like, okay, the 49ers are struggling. The Rams are hurt. The Cardinals, they still got to show us something. Like, you go into Monday night with the Cardinals against the Chargers feeling like, man, we could kind of take a handle on this division. We can kind of really set our path here. And then it kind of just all falls apart in front of your eyes. Cardinals beat the Chargers on Monday night. Then they beat the Dolphins today or yesterday. And then you lose to the Bills. Like, it just feels like what was a brief pocket of time where the Seahawks were in control of this thing. They immediately let it get away, and they're 4-4. And like, I don't know. Are they the team they were this week? Are they the team that lost to the Giants? Are they the team that beat the Falcons? I don't know what they are.
They're the hardest team in the league to figure out. Won 3 in a row to start the year, but really they beat nobody. Then they lose 3 in a row, including a Giants loss in Seattle. Smoke the Falcons and then go back home and get smoked by the Bills. They're a talented operation. There's no doubt about that. I think that Ryan Grubb being his first year ever in the NFL, that's showing up. They're way too pass aggressive. They got to get Ken Walker going. And defensively, man, they got too many. They're way too deep up front for them to have these types of issues getting after the quarterback and in particular stopping the run. Their run defense has been terrible this season. And with the talent they have, that just should not be the case. So look, they traded for a linebacker. We'll see how it comes together. They're 4-4. The worst thing in the world is not losing to a cross-conference team, right? So they're okay, but they got to find some consistency.
Our leading rusher can't be Geno Smith. He can't lead the team with 5 carries for 16 yards. We're not going to win that way, right? We drafted 2 running backs. This organization, I know Pete Carroll's not there anymore, but this organization, this front office, drafted 2 running backs to have them be the identity of this team. We're going to play good defense. We're going to run the football. We then get a defensive-minded head coach. We give him this opportunity, and that's what we should lean on. And yet Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet both averaged 1.3 yards per carry in this game.
Yeah, it gets a suspect.
Win games away.
Bills run defense not good. So that was not that. I spent all week on Locked On Bills talking about how Kenneth Walker is going to go off, and what do you have? 12 carries for
12. I think he had 12 yards.
9 for 12. Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, glad I got everyone worked up about that.
They had 32 yards as a team.
Right. And they're the most pass aggressive team in the NFL.
What are we doing?
We're not playing good ball. All right. So one thing we like to do is make sure that we hit at least a little bit on every single game. Let's go real quick to Packers Jaguars. Packers win late. We'll see what happened. Jordan Love got injured in this game. Jaguars stink. Any prevailing thoughts here that are meaningful for you?
I mean, the Jags stink. They could have traded Christian Kirk. He gets hurt, so that's off the table. So your attempt to even recoup some assets to try to help you in the future is gone. They are a team that's spiraling out of control. I just, the question now is Doug Peterson make it through the rest of the year? I just don't know at this point.
I don't know either. They're in a deep, deep hole, and it doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction. The Colts lose to the Texans 23-20. The Colts were 4-3 entering this game. The Texans were 5-2. So like they had a real chance here to make some noise. They lose by 3 points. And man, it's becoming there's a lot of career left for Anthony Richardson, but I mean, he follows up a 10 of 24 performance with a 10 for 32 performance. There's just no efficiency in this passing game whatsoever. And defensively, they don't really have much going for them in Indy. Obviously, Houston continues to scratch and claw and get through it. And obviously, Nico Collins being out affects that football team. But Texans at 6-2 is a good spot to be. And they're certainly in control of that division. But I think I still have questions. I feel like on both teams here.
I'm a little worried because I'm about to make a pop culture reference, and we know how these normally go here on the show. I wish I had Kyle to back me up.
I hope it's about superheroes.
I mean, you know what they say about the Colts. This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue, right? That's what they say. That's what the internet tells me about the Indianapolis Colts. Did this go right over your head, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Oh man, please, the diehard listeners of this program who know me and know Joe, please help me out here in Twitter, please. This Colts team is better with Joe Flacco than they are with Anthony Richardson. Right. That is not an indictment of Anthony Richardson's future. It is just an indictment of Anthony Richardson's present. Like it is just an indictment on this football team. And if their goal right now is to win football games, to have a cohesive culture in that locker room, then they need to sit Anthony Richardson down. I don't think they're going to do that. Let me just make that very clear. But if that is the goal, to win football games and to develop a winning culture, I don't think they're going to be able to do that this year under Anthony Richardson.
And the whole conversation with Anthony Richardson remains reps, right? And
right,
like, so what is the goal? Is the goal to get Anthony Richardson ready to play so he's battle tested so that you can eventually be the football team you drafted him to be? But I mean, the reality is they're better with Joe Flacco. They just are.
Right. You need to do what John Mara did for the Giants, right? If you're okay with them just letting Anthony Richardson play to get snaps, then you have to come out like John Mara did and give the ringing endorsement to your GM and your coach. Although that doesn't mean anything. It's just words on a piece of paper, but at least it gives them the cover to do what they're going to do to be able to keep Richardson out there. Because if not, if you don't say anything like that out loud, then the idea in the NFL is to win football games. And this is not a recipe to win football games.
Dallas and San Francisco. Dallas made it interesting at the end after 49ers scored 21 unanswered points in the third quarter. And then Dallas gets a chance at the ball late, and Dak literally tries to throw an interception on first down. No clue where he was going with the ball. And then it hits Cavante Turbin down the field in his face mask.
Yep.
And then there's nobody in this passing game that's meaningful outside of CeeDee Lamb, and they can't run the ball. So
Joey had 13 catches on 17 targets for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like nobody else did anything in this game. Nobody on their passing offense. And then on the other side of things, this absolutely floored me. The San Francisco 49ers were able to rush for 223 yards on the Dallas Cowboys. Color me shocked. That's why you lose football games. Man. You can't stop the run. You can't play good defense. And we knew this in the summertime. Like, I can't believe we're here in week 8 having the same conversation that we could have had all summer about this team.
Yeah, they forgot there was an off season, so there's that.
Well, no, everybody but one person forgot that there was one person forgot there was an off season. He just happens to be the most important person in the building.
Yeah. All right, Chris, real quick, are the Mets signing Juan Soto? This guy seems good. What's the deal?
Wow, we're closing with some baseball thoughts here on the show. Will the Mets sign Juan Soto? They will certainly give it a try. And then the contract is going to absolutely floor you, and you're going to hate it. And it's going to go one of two ways. He's either going to sign with the Mets for a big number, and you're going to text me, boy, this was an overpay, or he's going to sign with the Yankees, and you're going to say, he got that much money? What's going on here?
I've already looked at the stats. They look good. The stats look good.
He's a good baseball player, Joe.
Yeah,
he's a good baseball player.
I don't care. What's the owner's name again? Well, I forgot his name.
Steve Cohen is his name, yeah.
You think I care about that guy's money?
He doesn't care about his money. He just spends it on his baseball team. So.
Do you think I care if he overpays? Because that's the thing. Looking at the Dodgers, and look, obviously I've been deeply committed to following Major League Baseball this year.
Yeah, massive.
So I have a lot of nuanced thoughts and opinions. The Dodgers have a lot of good players. Like
they are very good. Yes,
right?
They're a team. Lots of good players on their team. Yes,
I too would like to get lots of good players, and I know that they pay lots of money for these good players. So let's do that. Yeah, we had to. I mean, come on, let's go Mets. Obviously, didn't get the finish that we wanted, but I mean, that's the funnest Mets season in a long time. I think they showed a lot. There's some big off-season decisions to make. I've read a few articles, listened to some of your work. Chris? What's going on with you, man? You're doing postcasts. You got all kinds of stuff going on. If people want more Chris Schubert in their life, how do they get it?
They can do so. Unfortunately, the only way they're going to be able to do so right now is for my Locked On Jets postcast, which I do.
I'm here, brother. I won't miss one. I'll tell you that. Love it.
So in the win, lose, or draw, I'm there recapping everything. I'll do another one on Thursday when they take on the Texans. But I also do the Locked On Mets postcast when baseball season kicks up. I recap every single Mets game as it happens. So you can catch me on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. There
it is. Chris Schubert making is this a cameo? I don't know what this is. A guest host. He was here. We talked football. He didn't float around and produce anything. That's me. I am now you. And let me tell you, not a fan.
How did it feel? How did it feel? Because it felt great on this end. It was stress free. I just talked into a microphone.
Show up with a microphone, get out of here and go to sleep. No, I got to produce. I got to
had my notes on my tablet. It was great. It was fantastic.
Unbelievable, Chris Schubert. How the tables have turned here. It's good having you on, my guy. Miss having you on here all the time. Hope that you're doing well. Of course, we'll be in touch, and I might bug you. Get Kyle out of here from time to time. We can have some fun and talk ball. Thanks for being here, Chris.
I do find it interesting that the two times that I've done stuff outside of my postcast are with you on Locked On Bills and here, and they are all without Kyle. So I should talk to Kyle about something. I don't know.
I don't know. You guys good? You guys got anything you got to sort out? Any questions?
No. I got to check with him.
All right, there it is. All right, Chris Schubert, everybody. Thanks for being here, my guy. Thank you for everyone who tuned into this podcast. As always, we kindly ask you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and we look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.